Hello, my dear students. I welcome you all to CMI's online classes. So, dear students, in today's class, we are going to start a new chapter from our English textbook, chapter 2. And the title of this chapter is Charles. And this story is written by Shirley Hardy Jackson. This chapter will take us back to our world when we were just little children and were ready to go to school. But when we were back home from school, we were full of complaints and false information to our parents that some of you still do till now also. Am I right, students? We also see in a school that in a single class there are students of different characters. Some of them are good and listen to their teachers, and some are very naughty and always faces teachers' punishment. But by the time passes, every little child who are naughty at the beginning of their school days transform themselves, change themselves to good and obeying children. Isn't it? We see in the story how Larry, a little boy who has just joined his preschool, is very naughty and fond of making stories about Charles and gives false information to his parents. This kind of behavior you might also have when you were young children. At present also you may have. So let's see how Larry goes to school, and whenever he comes back home from his school, what stories he makes and present it before his parents. His parents believe and wanted to meet Charles, an imaginative character made by Larry in his school, and speaks about his naughty behaviors to his parents. His parents think that the bad influence of Charles would also make Larry a bad child. They want to meet Charles' parents in every parents and teachers meeting in school. But they could not meet, and Larry continues on making stories about Charles. So let's see what is the chapter really about and how fun we are going to have while understanding Larry and Charles in the story, and how the parents have been made fool by Larry. I believe you students also love to make your parents fool, aren't you? Do you make your parents fool at home by giving false information from the school and complaints regarding your friends? So let's go through the chapter and understand what actually the chapter tells us about. But before starting the chapter, I would like to inform you something, that what we are going to learn from this chapter and what we are going to understand from this chapter. To understand the theme of this chapter is the school days. We are going to see the picture of schools when the slowly growing up children are able to go to school, and how they are very naughty and how they don't wish to go to school. All these characters we see in this story. So at the end of this chapter, you all will be able to answer the questions based on situation, that is the situational or conditional questions to answer. You will be able to understand Larry's behavior was not good at home, as well as when you identify Charles' behavior in school was also very poor. But at the same time, you will love and you will appreciate the twist that comes at the end of the story regarding the two characters, Larry and Charles, that is placed by the author Shirley Jackson. And before we enter the story, we have to get acquainted with the characters of the story. See, the characters of the story are Laurie, a little boy who is ready to go to attend his preschool, kindergarten. And the another character is his father, Laurie's father. And another character is Laurie's mother, who is also a narrator of this story. That means the whole chapter is narrated by Laurie's mother. And at last we have another character of the story who is a teacher in Laurie's school, a kindergarten teacher. And the setting of the story, setting means the place of the story, that means the story where the story takes place. So here the place where the story takes place are the two places. They are Laurie's home and his school. So we see that the story has been taken place in two places, at Laurie's home and school. So let's enter the story. As the story starts, the narrator tells us, she informs us. And again I am asking you the question. So tell me, who is the narrator of the story? Can you tell me who is the narrator of the story? Here in this chapter, the narrator of the story is Laurie's mother. So she informs us as the story begins, and her little boy, her little son, a little child, Laurie, has just started going to attend his kindergarten. Kindergarten means a preschool or an educational institution for children. So the narrator informs us that Laurie has started going to kindergarten, and at the very first day of his school, he renounced, that means he left wearing pants with bibs, that means handkerchiefs, and now he wears blue jeans with a belt. That means the first change that Laurie has brought in himself after attending the school. Do you think this is the good change in Laurie? After attending his first day in school, he has left to wear his pants with handkerchief. Because being a child, we know that in our childhood also we used to wear pant with handkerchief at our chest. This would be the sign of good child, the sign of being a good child. But here that goodness is lost by Laurie by the first day of his school, and now he wears blue jeans with a belt. The first morning he goes to school with the older girl next door. That means next door means the girl of the next house to the narrator's house. And his mother, who is also the narrator of the story, realizes that an era of her life is over, as her baby child has started going to school. This means when she sees that her son has become ready to go to school, she believes now that time is over. Her time is over now. Now he is no more child. She is a mother. She becomes very emotional to see her son has become ready for school. So she believes that now her era or her time has gone. Now it's the time of her son. So she thinks that her time is over now and it's the time of her child, Laurie. So regularly he comes home from school on the same way, slams the door open, drops his cap on the floor, and indolently, that means disrespectfully, talks to his father. Do you also act same as Laurie after going back home from school? Do you also behave like Laurie at home with your parents? And at lunch, his father asks him about what he learned at school. Laurie replies that even though he learned nothing, a boy got spanked being fresh. That means being a new student and without knowing anything in school. When the mother asks him who it was, he says it was the boy named Charles, who was awfully fresh, that means very much new in school. When she again asks what Charles did, Laurie slides off his chair, takes a cookie and leaves the place without answering to his mother. That means it is very rude, no? His mother is asking him question, but he doesn't like to reply the questions being asked to him, and he just leaves the place and run away from there, taking a cookie at his hand. The next day, Laurie informs his parents how Charles hit the teacher. When his parents inquire, he plays a prank on his father. That means he just informed about Charles that Charles hit the teacher in his school. But at the same time, when his parents ask him the reason why that Charles hit the teacher and what did the teacher do to Charles, instead of answering all these things, Laurie begins to play a prank on his father and calls him dumb. On Wednesday, Charles bounces a seesaw onto the head of a little girl and makes her bleed. On Thursday, Charles has to stand in a corner during story time because he keeps pounding his feet on the floor. He keeps tapping his feet when the story time was going on in his class. So he was asked to stand in a corner as a part of punishment from the side of the teacher. On Friday, Charles is deprived of blackboard privileges. That means he was kept away from the work of performing anything on the blackboard because he throws a chalk. Then his mother states her worry. She feels very much worried about her son Laurie, who has just started going to school, as he would also become a very naughty child under the influence of Charles. So the mother speaks to the father that maybe kindergarten is not fit for Laurie. That means this preschool is not fit for Laurie because of the presence of the people like Charles in the school, to which he replies that it is better for the kid to meet such people early in life than later. Actually, Charles' father wanted Charles to become a very straightforward, who would not hide any kind of complaints from school and would tell everything whatever happened in school. He wants his son to become bold. So he is happy that Laurie has met such kind of person in his very early phase of his life, because anyhow in the later phase of our life we are going to meet such kind of persons. So Laurie would have such kind of experience in her early phase of his life. So when Laurie comes home on Monday, he announces that Charles yelled in school and shouted in school and had to stay back. All other children stayed back to watch him. He again talks disrespectfully to his father, and when asked what Charles looked like, he says Charles is bigger than him and never wears a jacket. On Tuesday, Laurie tells them that Charles kicked the teacher's friend and he did not want to do exercises. By the third week of kindergarten, Charles becomes an institution in her house. That means every time the parents are talking about Charles at home, that Laurie continued bringing complaints regarding Charles, and the parents are listening to their complaints and they are very much worried. So every day they are talking about Charles and they are very much eager to meet Charles' parents. But now slowly we see there is a reformation, transformation, change in Charles in the third and fourth week of his kindergarten, where he becomes the teacher's helper. That means now by the third and fourth week of his preschool, now Charles has become the teacher's helper. Laurie's parents are keen on meeting Charles' mother to ask her what brought on the transformation of Charles. That means this time when they come to know from Laurie that now Charles has slowly become a good boy. So some transformation, some changes have come into Charles and now he has become the teacher's helper. So this information makes the parents even more interested, more interested to meet Charles' parents to ask them that what brought such changes, what measures brought such changes in Charles, so that they would also apply the same with Laurie also, isn't it? Do you think? As the same way Charles is transforming himself, I think Laurie also wants some transformation in his behaviors at home. But by Friday of that week, things are back to normal and Charles is again causing trouble. That means same Charles who had changed himself from bad to good has now again become good to bad and causing trouble in school, in his class. This time by saying bad words out loud and getting his mouth washed with soap. The parents become even more interested in meeting the mother of this unruly child. When the mother goes to PTM, she restlessly searches for Charles' mother, but none look haggard enough to her. She finally spots Laurie's kindergarten teacher, who reveals that Laurie had a little trouble in adjusting in the first and second week, but is now a nice helper with the occasional lapses. That means occasional lapses means sometimes he behaves well and sometimes he behaves strange, just as Charles. On being asked about Charles, the mother is told. That means when Laurie's mother asks the kindergarten teacher, she is told that they do not have anyone named Charles in kindergarten. That means there was no student named Charles in the class where Laurie was the student. So what do you think about Charles? Charles was the same imaginative story of Laurie? That means whatever Laurie was doing in his school, he was making the same story, an imaginative story, but with the name of Charles. So at the end of the story, when Laurie's mother wants to meet Charles, she is informed that there is no student in Laurie's classroom by the name Charles. That means there is no character called Charles in the story. So this was all about the story of the chapter. Now I am again summarizing this chapter, and the summary is like this. Laurie started his kindergarten, and looking at her long trousered boy with a swaggering character, the mother realized that it was the end of her era. He came back home, threw his cap on the floor, and spoke indolently, that means disrespectfully, to his father throughout lunch. He said he hadn't learnt anything in school, but a boy named Charles was spanked by the teacher as he was extremely disrespectful towards her. For the next 2 weeks, the parents were further informed of the mischievous Charles and things he did in class. They wanted to meet Charles' mother at the PTM and talk to her. By the 3rd week of kindergarten, Charles became an institution in her house. That means Charles became the talk of the entire house, entire family. There was a surprising transformation in Charles in the 3rd and 4th week, where he even became the teacher's helper. Just as Laurie's parents thought that maybe Charles did change for better, he went back to his ways on the Friday of that same week. The next PTM, the narrator tried to look for Charles' mother but could not spot anyone. She then made her way to the kindergarten teacher, who told her that Laurie had a little trouble in adjusting himself in his school, in his class, but now was teacher's helper with occasional lapses. On asking about Charles, the mother got to know that there was no one named Charles in kindergarten. So this was all about to understand from the story, and as I have already told you about the theme of the story is school days. It talks of a time when the narrator's son had just started kindergarten and how his behavior changes. To speak about characterization, we have 3 main characters in the story: Laurie, Laurie's father and mother. That means his parents. So from the story we come to know that Laurie is a young boy who has just started his kindergarten. From the mother's recollection, we got to know that he was a very sweet boy when he was younger. Now he speaks disrespectfully to his father and makes fun of him. He has been mischievous in school but lies to his parents, saying there was a boy named Charles who has been doing all this mischief. That means the mischievous acts he does in school, he explains the same at home, that it has been done by the another boy named Charles. Now to speak about Laurie's parents, Laurie's father and mother. See, Laurie's parents are very caring. His mother is sentimental and she feels quite emotional on Laurie's first day at kindergarten. She is also concerned that kindergarten will be unsettling for him due to Charles. The father, on the other hand, wants his son to become bold. He wants his son to be exposed to all kinds of people in life to make him wise. He wants to meet Charles' mother to talk to her about her son's behavior in school. His mother goes to the PTM and talks to the kindergarten teacher for the same. So this was all about the characterization also. Now I hope you all have understood all the aspects from the chapter, from the story. But still now, if you face any kind of trouble in understanding or replying the questions to give answers, kindly ask me, raise your doubts and clear yourselves. Okay students, thank you. Bye bye.